Welcome to the Crash the Pond podcast. It is a Monday, July 3rd, 7 p.m. early edition of the podcast. And if you can't tell from my mannerisms, my voice here, Jake, I'm kind of pumped. I'm also maybe a little overly caffeinated. That might be part of it. But
ooh, man, that was me earlier today.
The 5 p.m. coffee is just flowing through my veins right now.
I had a bit of a crash an hour ago, and I was worried about where my energy levels were, but laid on the couch a little, took down some water, and I'm ready to go because this is going to be a huge episode. I know that the last episode was massive on here just from the amount of viewership we got and everything like that, and how I think obviously long-term impact on the franchise, Leo Carlsson is for sure going to be that. And who knows, it may be immediate impact depending on how dev camp goes and depending how he does at preseason, rookie camp, everything along those lines. And it's still just as uncertain as it was last week where he's going to end up for the next season. But this past weekend had for sure implications on this roster next year with the signings the Ducks made. And the Ducks are involved in some pretty massive rumors, not only for players coming in, but also there's one that's going out that has become a bit of a back and forth between an agency and an insider. So this is going to be a fun one where we're going to, for those that don't know, there's the whole Gibson rumor from today. We'll get into it eventually, but we're going to do our best, I think, on that front to just kind of break down what's been said. Because I think understanding all fronts of that and understanding what's been said by who, reputations of everyone is important in this conversation. Then making of it what you will from that, I think, is the best way to go about this.
Yeah. So before we get to the soap opera that is John Gibson,
yeah,
which by the way is on season 2. This is season 2 of the John Gibson soap opera.
I feel like today has been an entire season and a half, to be honest.
Well, last off season we did the same song and dance, and I don't have the exact expression here off the top of my head, but after a while, like something like this, after a while, maybe it's not everyone's fault. Maybe it's yours. Maybe it's you. And the common thread here is, oh no, I didn't say that, or oh no, that wasn't me. And anyway, I'll leave it at that. We'll get into the Gibson snafu, debacle, kerfuffle, whatever you want to call it. We'll get into it. But let's start with this because I think this is a much more interesting and fun topic, which is free agency.
Yes.
July 1st.
Yeah.
We were really wondering which direction Pat Verbeek would go. We were really wondering because I think that we've kind of, I don't want to say downplayed free agency this year. Maybe we have downplayed it, but we certainly did not have these big expectations of how active the Ducks would be. We didn't really have a good sense of how big of swings that Pat Verbeek would take. And we have our answer. Radko Gudas is an Anaheim Duck, a phrase that I don't think I ever thought I'd say. 3 years, $4 million AAV. And part 2, the kicker, the kick to the nuts for some people. Alex Killorn, 4-year deal, $6.25 million AAV with 2 years of no trade clause and 2 years of 15 team no list. So where do we start? Should we start with Stonewall Jackson, a.k.a. Radko Gudas?
The man that broke our Discord at one point in time?
Yes. I made the comment or the joke a while back that Radko Gudas's playoff beard reminded me of a Civil War general, and I stand by that. But anyway, let's get into Gudas here. What was your reaction?
And by the way, so you mentioned it on Killorn, and I hadn't looked until now, so I wanted to on Gudas. Gudas this upcoming season has a full no trade clause. The season after, so 24-25, 16-team no list, and 25-26, a 10-team no list.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a no trade clause on each of these in order to make that happen. So let's start with the Gudas front. I think we both kind of expected the Ducks to try to make a splash, a little bit at least on the blue line. Get one guy in. That shores up 3 of your spots on your blue line, leaving 3 more for your younger guys, whether that be 3 of Zellweger, Minchukov, Lacombe, and Hellison. 3 of those 4 probably making up those last 3 spots. And Gudas, I think, actually is pretty much the perfect person to fill this role. I think age-wise is your biggest concern here because he is 33 years old right now. He just turned 33, so you're going to get his age 33, age 34, age 35 seasons with this contract. So not ideal from that perspective. But Gudas is a guy that has driven play in a positive manner pretty much anywhere he's gone. He's really good defensively. He's not like a traditional stay-at-home guy from that perspective because I feel like you see that concept out there a little bit with Gudas, but a lot of times a stay-at-home defenseman is a guy that ends up getting shelled in his own zone because he can't move the puck. A true kind of good defensive defenseman is a guy that is good at attacking the puck, if he's a physical guy, getting the body on the guy and getting the puck off of him as a result of that, not just hitting to make a hit. When you think of that, you think of maybe like a Simon Benoit, for instance, who is no longer with the team, was not qualified. And so I feel like Gudas does everything that you want from a player that is physical. He does that to retrieve the puck to get it back. And when you look at zone entry defense, he's great at defending his own blue line. And I think that's one of the things the Ducks were really poor at last year on the whole was defend. I mean, there was a whole lot of things that were poor, but they were really bad at defending their own blue line. And you look at some of the track data from Corey Schneider and you look at Radko Gudas, he's one of the best defenders in the league at defending his own blue line and having chances against from carries. He's really, really good at that. And so I think that's the biggest benefit for him. He's going to bring this, solid person on the blue line to, if you want to pair him with an Olin Zellweger, you can, and he's going to be able to make up for if Zellweger jumps up into the play. And so some people may look at Gudas and say, oh, he's just a physical guy, has a reputation of being a poor defenseman, all these things, more reputation based, and that couldn't be farther from the case. Like, he is actually very good analytically. You can have some concerns about him and how he's going to age, but I think in a 3-year deal, I would have preferred 2, but that extra year, maybe you're able to move him at that point. Maybe there's an injury and he goes on LTIR. There's a whole lot of things there, but I think for the most part, 3 years is as far as I would have gone with this contract, and that's what Pat Verbeek did, and this is a really good addition to the blue line and add some leadership if that is something that you care about, and that's something Pat Verbeek clearly did identify as being a big thing, as getting guys for the room.
Yeah, they needed to add another defenseman because I don't think there was a world in which you could trot out basically all young defensemen next season, especially, which we haven't talked about, but Kevin Shattenkirk within the last week went from being seemingly a lock to coming back to a Boston Bruin. And so Kevin Shattenkirk leaving basically opened up this right side spot for Radko Gudas. And now that he's here, you touched on it, he's so good defensively, but he's also a guy who can, you pointed to the tracking data, who can join the rush. He's actually very involved there. Part of that could be the fact that Florida plays a very unique system, but he's a guy who's creating offense as well. And I think that's the perfect blend to me, because another name that was thrown out there was Carson Soucy, who is younger, and he's not necessarily going to decline as much over his contract that he got from, I can't remember who right now, but he was more of a defensive specialist, and there wasn't as much indication that he could bring that offensive element. And I do think that this may not have been something Pat Verbeek thought about. Maybe he honed in more on the grit, the leadership, what have you. But the way that the Ducks could end up playing, especially with all those young bodies back there, is they're going to be fast. I think they're going to be up-tempo, or at least that's just what those names indicate to me. Fowler, Drysdale, Zellweger is going to be probably in the NHL. Mintyukov, when he gets up there. There's a lot of skating back there, and so you need someone that can keep up as well. And so the fact that Gudas is coming from a very high-octane system in Florida, where he was clearly a part of what was going right offensively and defensively, I think it's just a perfect mix, because he's shoring up a weakness, but he's not taking anything off the table either. Whereas Carson Soucy, again, just not really much evidence that he was going to help you on both ends of the ice.
Yeah, and we don't talk about the percentiles as much anymore, because I think you and I have moved on to a little bit different things that we find a little bit more interesting to talk about. But when you look at him from Evolving Wild's 3-year player card data, he's in the 81st percentile in defense. And while, yes, offensively, from that perspective, 35th percentile overall goes to 50th. I mean, the Ducks struggled in their own zone. Like, that was the biggest struggle for this team. They were the worst
everywhere.
But they were the worst defensive team in the analytics era. Like, at allowing chances, shots, everything along those lines. And so even if you're giving up a little bit of offense, you are gaining a lot of defense here with Radko Gudas. And I think that type of game can age a little bit. Like I said, the age isn't great. But I think the other interesting part is that as he does start to decline, right? Because that's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're having these guys start growing into these spots on their ELCs. You're having the Zellwegers start taking a bigger role. You're having the Minchukovs take a bigger role. You're having the Lacombe, the Hellisons, the Leno's, this vaunted defense that the Ducks have built in their prospect system. These guys starting to take bigger steps and develop more and more. And so even though Gudas is going to fall back, I think those guys are going to take steps forward in a way that is going to more than make up for the age-related decline that you're going to see. And that's one other really interesting part, I think, about this trade is, or not trade, signing, is just from the contract structuring of it. Like I said, I would have rather been 2 years. But if you think about the 3-year deal of it, it aligns perfectly with Cam Fowler. Yep. Deals. So when both of those guys expire, the Ducks are going to free up $10.5 million in cap space, which is an important thing to consider. And also it's going to line up perfectly with Zellweger and potentially Minchukov if he plays over 9 games this season. Their ELC is expiring. Yep. And so this is, I think, Pat Verbeek making the decision that while those guys are on their ELCs making minimal money, he's going to maybe overspend for a veteran that might not be worth it in a year or two. And as a result of that, and he's able to do that because of having this young blue line that is going to be cheaper on that front of it. And so I think that's an important point here. And while you and I both would disagree with necessarily paying guys as old as Gudas and we'll get to Killorn are, I think there are arguments for doing it in the sense of how the Ducks cap structure is set up in the context of the cap structure that they have.
Yeah, I just think the Gudas signing is not really a huge gamble. I think that if you look especially at the last 3 seasons, he played 72 games this season. He played 77 games last season. He played 54 out of 56 in the pandemic season. He played 63 in the pandemic shortened season. So I actually don't know what percentage of games that would be, but that seems like a lot in that year. He played 77 in 18-19. Like he's pretty durable. Yeah, and which is pretty impressive when you consider the style of game that he plays. Now, he just went on a deep playoff run, and he was so banged up at the end, he actually had to sit out. And so I think that's an encouraging sign as well. But even still, he could drop off a cliff at any given year. That's just the way these things go with older players.
Let me ask you this part of it. This is something I thought about the day that they signed him. Do you think that this makes Pat Verbeek, if he was considering giving Jamie Drysdale a bridge, because I think most likely that's probably what Drysdale wants, probably what the Ducks want after Drysdale missed most of this past season.
Yep.
Do you think that changes from being a 2-year bridge to maybe trying to get a 3rd year out of it?
From which side of that equation?
From maybe the Ducks will pay a little bit more than they had wanted to give him a little bit more guaranteed money.
Yeah.
And in that perspective, the Ducks are going to not have to give him an extension or give Jamie Drysdale an extension while Gudas is still under contract.
I could see that.
That $10.5 million that will free up at the same time. Drysdale, Zellweger, and Minchukov all need new contracts. Now you could also make the argument they may not want all those guys becoming free agents at RFAs at the same time.
Yeah.
But there is an argument to it with the cap rising. Then you'll have cap space freeing up with those guys. It just allows yourself more freedom. And so I would make the argument for doing that. Who knows if that's where they'll go, because you will have to give a little bit more money to Drysdale for giving him that extra term.
And Drysdale may not want that either.
Fair.
Like he may want to get back in the game faster.
Maybe just take a 1 year even.
Right. And so we'll see. That's actually going to be I'm more intrigued, I think, at this point about the Drysdale deal than the Zegras deal. I don't know if you share that opinion, but I feel like with Zegras, I would be very surprised if it wasn't this kind of mega,
like 8 times 8.
This mega extension that we've seen for young players of that ilk. So we'll see there. But yeah, overall though, what are your bottom line thoughts on Radko Gudas being a Duck?
I think it's a fantastic signing. I think if you were to look at the class of free agents on the blue line, I think while he is on the older end of the spectrum, I think they did well to get
good.
Yes, they did well to go and get someone that was good, that helps this blue line, that can be a mentor to the younger guys. And, I mean, if you care about some sort of protection or physicality, he does add that to the lineup. That's not something I care about necessarily. I think it's more important to have someone with some really good defensive metrics and can really help your team in your own zone. And so, yeah, I think that it's a great signing overall.
And that's the thing for me, is that I think everyone can have their cake here and eat it too. Because whether you're coming at it from an analytical standpoint, He's got solid underlying numbers. The contract isn't super exorbitant. And if you're coming at it from more of a intangibles, off-ice leadership perspective, you're satisfied there too, because he's coming from a winning situation. He adds a dimension that the Ducks do not have on their back end, and arguably have not had, because I think Radko Gudas has been better than Josh Manson over the last few years. So
Yes.
all that to say, they kind of get to fill that archetype. They don't really take away from their flexibility too much, and they are a better team next season. Like, in the very immediate future, aka next season, the Ducks are better because Radko Gudas is on their team.
Yep.
So it's a win-win. You could have gone different ways. You could have gone Carson Soucy. You could have gone with maybe even a shorter on with some of the other guys that got signed. But I think this makes sense for where this team is at. And look, you kind of just need, at some point, we'll get into this.
Yeah.
With Killorn, you need to pay to be better.
Yes.
Like you can't just have it all come out from your internal growth. And so I guess that's a perfect segue to Alex Killorn.
Yep.
He is a Duck. We already touched on it. 4 years, 6.25. I think this one is much harder to stomach from a contract perspective.
Yeah, I think we've discussed it a bunch in our Discord. I think the easiest way for me to put this is it's a bad contract in a vacuum. There's no way around that, especially with how we've been with 28-year-olds talking about that, and Killorn's 33, going to be 34 at the start of the upcoming season. It's not ideal. It's not ideal to give someone for their age 34, 35, 36, and 37 seasons $6.25 million. It's just not ideal from a cap perspective or from an AAV perspective. Not ideal from an aging perspective.
It's
not ideal. I think if it was 3 years, it's easier to stomach. But that is in a vacuum, and I think you kind of hit it. I think from the context of this Ducks roster that you do at a certain point have to pay for guys.
Yeah.
And you do have to pay for guys that bring goals, that bring kind of upper end of the lineup, everything along those lines. And you also have the perspective of the salary cap is supposed to go up about $10 million in the next 2 seasons.
Yes.
I think it's rumored to go up to $93.5 million. And it's supposed to go up even more next year. I think it'd go up to $88 million, I think, next year, something like that.
I'm not exactly sure.
I think that's the rumors that I've heard. And so if that is correct, that makes this look a lot better, right?
Yeah.
Because as that money goes up, that makes this a lot easier to stomach. And essentially what you're doing is you're overpaying from a percentage of cap perspective for the first year of the deal when the cap is lower, and the Ducks have the cap space right now to work with.
Yeah.
The Ducks aren't going to be cap tight this year, even if they go out and even if after the Zegras Terry Drysdale extension, even if somehow they go out and get Alex DeBrincat, because most likely they're going to move on from guys also. Most likely Adam Henrique might be gone in the future. Most likely, we'll get into it, but John Gibson could be gone.
Yeah.
Also, like that frees up a bunch of cap space. And so there are ways to free up cap space even if they make all these moves where the cap is not going to be a concern this year. The concern is the age 3 or the second year, third year, fourth year, and the percentage of cap there.
Yeah.
And so with the cap rising, that makes that a little bit easier to stomach. And the other part is the age of it. And so for those that don't know, we haven't even talked about Alex Killorn, the player. Alex Killorn, the player.
I was going to steer us in that direction.
Yeah. Alex Killorn, the player, is a guy that has essentially lived in the top 6 of the Tampa Bay Lightning for the last, 5, 6, 7 years.
Good place to live.
And has really shown himself as having a lot of finishing talent. If you look at Micah McCurdy's data on that, where he kind of lists out the expected goals for and kind of individual isolated impacts for the player, and you can look at shooting or finishing and setting, he's near the very top, plus 7% impact on goal odds from a finishing perspective.
He's a good shooter.
He's a very, very good shooter. And so from a actual on-ice driving offense perspective, on-ice defense perspective, more so mediocre, but he's a high-end shooter.
Yeah.
And that costs money. And the question is, can he maintain that as he ages? It's not ideal.
Well, can he maintain it not in Tampa Bay?
Well, sure. That's also a good point. I think that playing with a Trevor Zegras and a Troy Terry, if that is a line that ends up happening, that is certainly all. That's going to maintain some of the high chance looks that he's getting.
He needs to play with a playmaker. I
Yes.
think that's pretty clear. I think what's interesting is that he his on-ice numbers are not that impressive, but when you look at the tracking data, he grades out really well in the defensive zone. He's really involved at retrieving the puck, breaking the puck out, just overall involvement defensively, and he's a good forechecker at pressuring the opposition, recovering dump-ins. And when you think just about those two things, forgetting the shooting, forgetting anything else, that is an area where the Ducks have not necessarily excelled over the last few years. And so bringing in a forward who can finish off great plays and who can actually get you to the offensive zone, because surprise, surprise, you don't just spawn in the offensive zone, to use a video game term. You got to get there. And the Ducks just haven't, both systems and talent-wise, just have not been able to do that nearly as consistently as they should be. And so Killorn brings some of that credibility. And then on top of that, he can transport the puck himself, grades out well there, and he has got some playmaking to him in that shooting. So I think it's just a perfect stylistic fit, because the Ducks have playmaking guys. They have guys like Troy Terry who love to get out on the rush. They have guys like Trevor Zegras who can do that as well. But they don't really have what I guess we would call like a glue guy, a connector, necessarily in that top six. I think Mason McTavish has shown that.
Adam Henrique's probably the closest to that they have.
Adam Henrique's a little bit more of a floater type than Killorn. Like, he's not as involved, at least just from the eye test and some of the stats. But so anyway, all this to say that I love the on-ice fit with Killorn. I think that, again, in isolation, just in simply inserting this player onto this roster, again, it makes them better. It definitely makes them better next season. And I think it'll also just be exciting to see. I mean, Alex Killorn is a longtime Tampa Bay Lightning. Yeah. He's been in multiple deep playoff runs. He's been in every one of their cup finals since 2004. Removing the 2004 one. And, you think about the aging curve there. He hasn't missed a regular season game in the last 3 years. Yeah. And if you go back to 1920, he played 68 games. And in the 4 seasons before that, he missed 2 total regular season games. Like, this dude is as durable as they come. It's actually really impressive. So I think that gives you some confidence that he's going to be able to at least fight off Father Time. But again, it's one of those things where you just never know as players get older.
And for those that don't know, he put up 27 goals last season. He did shoot 18%. Season before put up 25 goals, shot 15%. Season before that put up 15 goals in the COVID-shortened season, 56 games, 15 goals, 12%. Season before that, which was the 1920 season that got shut down early, 26 goals in 68 games, 20% shooting. And then season before that, 18 goals in 82 games, 11% shooting. Yeah. So this is a guy that in the last 5 seasons, since he's been 29, has been shooting 11, 12% or more.
Was a career 12.5% shooter.
So I think that goes to the talent that we talked about, or that I talked about from Micah's data about being a high-end finisher.
It's hard to maintain that kind of number.
Yeah, if it's unsustainable.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, in order to maintain that, it has to be skill-based. It's not necessarily just going to be an unsustainably high number. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, that can fall off as you age and things like that. But I do think that in a so I think getting back to the very original thing I had was, in a vacuum, bad deal. Bad contract from the contract perspective. I think with the context of the cap rising, I think I would raise it to maybe like a C minus from the contract perspective.
Yeah.
And from a fit perspective, I would put it as a B, because the Ducks needed this type of finisher. And I think
it's an A from just an on-ice fit.
Probably. And I think if you are someone that thinks that this locker room needs someone that's kind of been there and can really help mentor some of the younger guys on the team, that's exactly what he's done and where he's been at. And so I think, if for people that think that is necessary, he does fit that mold. And that is something that Pat Verbeek did specifically mention.
He hammered that home.
He hammered that home. I think there's a familiarity, right, where Pat Verbeek was with the Tampa Bay Lightning organization when Alex Killorn and Radko Gudas were part of it. And so there is a familiarity there, and maybe an understanding of how he was.
They were teammates in the AHL.
I think that they said they were roommates when they broke into the NHL.
There you go. Yeah.
So they played against each other for the last however many years. So it's an interesting deal, because I think I want to like the deal from the on-ice perspective, because it makes the team better.
It does. It unquestionably makes them better.
The contract is going to be rough as it starts getting later. And the one thing I'll add is that if needed, there is the ability to buy out the final year.
There is. I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, and so which would make it more like a 3-year deal.
Yeah, I can't give a kind of one-size-fits-all analysis because I do think that there's just multiple parts to this. So part one is the on-ice fit. And like we've been saying, I think it's a great fit. This is the kind of player they needed. From an off-ice fit, with the personality, with the credibility of being a multiple-time champion, deep playoff runs, like that is something that probably this team could use, right? Like you and I aren't the biggest chemistry guys, but at the same time, it probably matters. And so bringing in someone like that is going to help this team that's going to be really young still. That's part two. But part three, which might not weigh the same as parts 1 and 2, is that you're paying a premium for a guy who's on the wrong side of 30, and it just isn't really obvious where the Ducks have a quote-unquote negotiation win. Like, this just seems like Alex Killorn got everything he wanted.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think the negotiation win is that they got the player. I think that's the only negotiation win, which is from the perspective of the Ducks wanted to get better this upcoming season, and so they did what they needed to get their guy.
They got their guy, but it's just not a good contract.
It's not.
In the interest of consistency and having harped on
100%
these types of deals in the past, I just can't give this contract a good grade, but I think it's a good player. I think it's a guy who's going to help the team, and I'm still excited to see it play out. And there is a possibility, as we talked about with Alex Killorn's durability, that maybe he ages much more gracefully. We're seeing some cases of that in the NHL. Like you think about like a Joe Pavelski. Some guys are able to do that. Again, that's still not the favorite. That's not the likeliest thing to happen, but I think if you blend these two deals together, what's your kind of final thought on just day one of free agency and how it shakes out?
Perfect. I think the idea that the Ducks were going to try to be a basement dweller again next season can be thrown out the window.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, sure, the Ducks are still underneath the cap floor, but they're going to sign Zegras, they're going to sign Terry, they're going to get above the cap floor fairly easily. I mean, they're 6.9 under the cap floor. One of Zegras or Terry is probably going to be that. Yeah. And so I think this clearly shows that Verbeek wants to improve the team. Yeah. Wants to find a way to make this team better. And this isn't a Corey Perry going to Chicago situation where they're just trying to find guys to support Bedard, and there's not a whole lot of talent outside of that. Yeah. The Ducks have a lot of talent coming up and are NHL ready or are close to NHL ready.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to fill out around them. These are not bottom six. This is not a bottom six signing.
Yeah, you got a top four defenseman and top 6 forward.
Like, this is meant to improve this team and support the younger guys. And JH1722 on our Twitch chat brings up how many been there guys do they need, though? Fowler has been there, Henrique has, Silverberg, Gibson, even Strome of Toronto had a good playoff run. And, sorry, I just want to say this. Henrique is probably not going to be here after this upcoming season.
Exactly.
Silverberg, same thing, probably not going to be here. Hell, Gibson might not even be here over the next couple of days. And Vetrano only has 2 years left on his deal. And so, while yes, you can say that about this season, I think that, and I think the one thing you can say in criticism, I think the Strome contract looks worse now.
It does.
But
it looks a lot worse.
I want to see Strome not under Dallas Eakins, because if you look at his career GAR data, last season was a massive fall off for him.
Yes.
So all of it, I think that everyone's data on the Ducks next season doesn't need to be fully thrown out the window, but needs to be met with the light of Dallas Eakins really ran this team into the ground last season.
Yeah, I think next season will be a great test for all of that. I think, though, that now 2 years into the Verbeek tenure, or his second kind of go-around at free agency, this trend of giving older guys a lot of money with term is a little concerning. That being said, the Ducks are in a position, like you said, where they have a lot of cap flexibility, and maybe that is part of why he's doing this, but also he doesn't necessarily have to target these guys either, right? And so I feel like he really, really values this kind of bring adults into the room and bring leadership. And hey, he's closer to the team than we are. So maybe that's truly, really, truly something that's needed.
Yeah.
But I just can't, again, for the sake of consistency, really speak praisingly about these kind of contracts. But I like, Strome aside, I really like the players that he's brought in this offseason.
Yeah, and two other points that I want to make. One that I'm for sure remembering right now. The other one somehow just escaped me. And somehow I lost the other one right now.
Wow.
Damn. Wow.
There we go.
There they both went. They were both on the top of my head and now lost them right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so with that being the case, never mind. I'll see if I can remember it after or in a bit.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you tell us about something that a lot of people could use?
Yes. So, first impressions matter. There are no two ways around it. What's the first thing that someone notices about you? In most cases, it's your face and more importantly, your skin. If you aren't already, it's time to put your best face forward. How do you do that? By adding in a skincare routine. And you know what? It's not hard. You just don't have the right tools until now. Clinically proven to reduce wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging, Caldera Lab is the leader in men's skincare and is here to save the day. Use our exclusive code CTP at calderalab.com to enjoy 20% off their best products. Caldera Lab creates high-performance men's skincare products, and the regimen leads off their product lineup, a twice-a-day routine to transform your skin. The skincare world is heavily female-driven and has long been the wild, wild west for men. Whether the men can't find the right brand or simply lack knowledge and understanding of it, skincare is something that requires attention. Luckily, men's skincare has never been easier with Caldera Lab and the regimen. Inside this bundle, you'll find your skincare dream team, the clean slate, the base layer, and the good. The clean slate starts and ends your day. The face wash leaves all skin types refreshed. The base layer is your daily moisturizer that hydrates your skin and absorbs it fast, leaving you with a matte finish so that you can start your day confidently. The good is your go-to at night before bed and clinically proven multifunctional serum that helps your skin look tighter and smoother, as well as reduce the visibility of wrinkles and fine lines in every drop. In every drop of the serum, there are 3.4 million antioxidant units protecting your skin. Want to know what that means? Well, I have no clue. But it must be good though, right? They even have this eye serum called the Icon. It addresses the 3 most common skin concerns around the eyes: fine lines, dark circles, and puffiness. Caldera Lab is made with top-tier ingredients and is a great addition to your daily routine. Takes less than a minute morning and night, and here to reduce your wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging. Get 20% off with our code CTP at calderalab.com. That's 20% off at calderalab.com by using the code CTP. Jump into skin and first impression royalty with Caldera Lab. And also, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to unleash the beach beast within you. This summer, Manscaped is here to help you level up your beach game with their new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. They're going past waist deep in the grooming game and diving in headfirst to your facial hair fantasies. The Beard Hedger is a game changer, allowing you to shape your beard like a true beach babe. So this summer, let the beach balls bounce and turn heads all over the place. Visit manscaped.com and use code CTP for 20% off and free shipping. It's time to tame your mane, so say goodbye to all your stubble trouble with Manscaped Beard Hedger Pro Kit. It all starts with the Beard Hedger. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. Plus, it's waterproof, so you can shave in the shower and avoid all the hair in your sink. The titanium-coated T-blade is tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to single-stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. The Pro Kit doesn't end there, though. They have created 4 dermatologist-tested formulations for your post-trim care. First, there's the beard shampoo and conditioner. You need to remember, all your hair is different. Your beard hair is more coarse and easier to damage than the hair on your head. That's why the kit has made shampoo and conditioner specially designated moisturize, reduce ingrown hairs, replace natural oils, and promote beard health. Next, the kit has Manscaped's beard oil. This helps relieve dryness, both on the beard and the skin beneath, while adding a little shimmer and shine. And the Pro Beard Kit also comes with 3 free gifts: a beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. So you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code CTP at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code CTP. Manscaped Beard Hedger, 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 lengths.
Double duty.
Double duty.
Double trouble.
Whew.
There you go. You got through it.
I got through it. Made my way through. Do I remember what I was going to say on Alex Killorn? Oh, finally hit me. At least one of the two. Don't remember the second one at this point. Lou's asking, why does Jake have to do everything? I asked the same thing. But on Alex Killorn, there was a little bit of a narrative out there that he adds an edge to the team. That the physicality, that sticking up for the team, things like that. Am I crazy? I don't know that that's part of Alex Killorn's game.
I mean, he's a little rambunctious, just having watched him over the years. Like, I wouldn't necessarily call him like a super gritty grinder type of player. I mean, there is an element of that to his game, but
I remember the second point.
I think he brings a little bit of an edge, just so, like, definitely more of an edge than like this narrative that the Ducks have gotten pushed around. It's really funny because I feel like it's just become the running narrative, and it may be true, but I do feel like this signing and the Gudas signing are in part a response to that. I really think that NHL GMs hate their team being considered soft. And
yeah,
if I were to guess, if I were to get into Pat Verbeek's head, if I were to get into the beaker, I would think that that's what he thought about his team last season.
Here's the point I was going to make on Killorn, is that I feel like right now you have to overpay for getting good talent on the team because of where the team is at and how they just finish. Yeah. And hear me out here.
Yeah.
And so you have to do that right now. And the benefit of that is once you are a contending team, guys start to sign at a lower rate for you because they know they have a chance to win a cup. You saw it with Duchesne in Dallas, right?
Yeah.
And you're seeing it with guys signing in Toronto.
So
on one-year deals.
I'll push back on that.
Okay.
Can I push back on that?
Yes, go for it.
I mean, again, this isn't necessarily gospel, but I think it's the best we have. The Evolving Hockey projected his contract for 4 years at $6.1 million. Like, yes, the 6.25 is higher than that, but it's very close to the ballpark. And so I don't really think that this contract, like, I mean, word this carefully. I don't think that this contract is a bad Killorn contract. I just don't think the Ducks should have been the one giving it out, because I think this is the type of contract that Killorn would have gotten elsewhere. Like, I don't think that the Ducks were necessarily negotiating against themselves. So maybe they went a little higher in the AAV, but it's not like they went to 6.5, 6.75, 7. I actually think the contract itself is what a fair market value would have been for Alex Killorn. It's just I don't think the Ducks should have been the one writing the check.
That's fair point. Fair point. Okay.
So hopefully people are kind of talking out of both sides of our mouth analysis. Hopefully people understand that it's hard to look at a player signing and just kind of have one broad brush bottom line for it. Because
there's context.
The bottom line is that this is a big price to pay for a potential gamble, but there's also an upside to it, which is that he makes the team better, he brings these intangibles, and that he defies aging curves and is still at least just a reasonably productive player 3 years into his deal. There is an upside here, so we shouldn't completely lose sight of that.
Yep.
And on that note, one thing I wish I could lose sight of is the soap opera. Gibson v. Anaheim Ducks, or Gibson v. Sarah Valley, or Gibson v. whoever. Notice the party that's involved in all of these, though. Starts with a G, ends with an Ibsen.
Let's let's just walk through the timeline.
Yep.
Of this. So this all starts this morning, which is wild to think about that this was.
Well, it didn't just start this morning. Like, if you think about it, it's been reported for months that John Gibson wants.
But this specific saga, drama, however you want to put it. So I guess on Friday, Frank Saravalli was recorded a podcast, the Nasty Knuckles podcast, a Flyers podcast that I realized did not realize that's who it was till I looked up the podcast. Has Riley Cote on it.
Okay.
Makes sense why they're called Nasty Knuckles with him being a fighter.
Or he's a Flyers guy, so
yeah. And so there was just this one very nonchalant line of basically at one point, I ended up finding it fully in the podcast because they just posted a clip of it, but they were talking about Carter Hart and talking about him in a rebuild and how he might hate it and he'll get run into the ground and all that stuff. And Frank Saravalli kind of adds in a line like, look at John Gibson. He's told them, I am not playing another game for the Anaheim Ducks.
Yep.
or he has said that however he worded it. And he put that out there. And so someone brought that to my attention this morning. This was put at 7:22 a.m. Pacific time.
Wow.
I quote tweeted it, and then it felt like, I don't know if it was me or more people catching on because it was so early. It really took over because you had Bleacher Report tweet out an image of it with the Puck Empire version of it with the quote put on Yahoo! A picture of John Gibson.
Yeah.
Like, this became an absolutely massive ordeal. And then basically you have the 32 Thoughts pod come out, and there's an insert in it on the Anaheim Ducks section with Elliot Friedman saying that I don't like to refute other people's statements.
Reporting.
And do you have the exact quote? Because I think you tweeted it, right?
I can pull it up here.
Yeah.
But essentially he was saying, I don't want to refute anyone's reporting, but John Gibson has not told the Ducks that he's played his final game for them or that he won't play another game for them.
Yep.
And then I'll read it word for word.
Yeah.
I'm really not crazy about contradicting other people's reporting, but John Gibson has indicated on Monday that he has not refused to play another game for the Ducks if it comes to that.
Yep.
So, refuting that report by Frank.
And then about 2 hours ago...
Was it? So, okay, the podcast came out at, let's see, it came out at 4:21 p.m.
And the Kurt Overhart sports statement came out at 5:25.
Within 90 minutes of the pod dropping, with the insert, you have it. I have it in front of me if you want me to read it.
I have it in front of me also. I can. You want to read it or want me to?
Sure, I'll read it. You've done some heavy reading today.
Okay. Reading's hard.
Statement from KO Sports. So this is coming from John Gibson's agent, Kurt Overhart, saying, I just love how this is written. But anyway, we'll get through it. On July 1st, 2023, the Nasty Knuckles podcast episode was released with an inaccurate report by Frank Saravalli that John Gibson of the Anaheim Ducks had stated he refused to play another game for the Anaheim Ducks. On behalf of, and at the request of my client, John Gibson, we would like to clearly state this statement is false, unjust, and inflammatory. Frank Saravalli did not reach out to the player, nor myself, to fact-check the accuracy of this comment. My client has never stated to any member of the Anaheim Ducks front office any such statement. John Gibson is honored to be a member of the Anaheim Ducks and is a committed supporter of its fan base as well as the Ducks community. Sincerely yours, Kurt Overhart. I didn't say that. Sincerely yours.
Sincerely yours was you adding that.
So, let's just get down to brass tacks.
Wait. There's more.
Oh, well, and then Frank Saravalli.
Frank Saravalli tweeted or replied to that tweet stating, Hey, Kurt, do you remember the last time you attempted to claim my reporting was false? All the best. And he posted 2 screenshots, which is Kurt Overhart refuting a report that Frank Saravalli had that David Ludwig accepted a position with the Coyotes and said that was false. And then, let's see, I think it was like a day or two later. So that was on December 4th. And it doesn't have a date in the actual press release, but David Ludwig was named Director of Hockey Operations and Salary Cap Compliance for the Coyotes. Yeah. Basically, Frank Saravalli stating, last time you tried to refute my reporting, I ended up being right and you were wrong.
So I really want to get on this KO Sports letter thing and also the timing of it. Okay. So Elliot Friedman has that insert comes out at 4 o'clock, right?
Yep.
And within an hour, you have the same report, which is basically saying the same thing that Elliot Friedman said. So let me ask you this. Was Elliot Friedman just carrying water for Kurt Overhart?
Well, I think that was the information he was given. He probably reached out to the Ducks and reached out to the agency, and they both fully refuted it.
Right. Or did KO Sports see this negative press and, reach out to insiders to spread the word? Because that's a thing that happens too.
Well, yeah, but I
just think that is an inference you can reasonably draw.
I understand why Elliot Friedman would put that statement out there if that's what he's being told.
Exactly. So anyway, I'm not saying that I shouldn't. Maybe carrying water is a little harsh, but I just think that Elliot Friedman's statement is coming from the same place, right? So has he cross-reference that or cross-check that with other people, right? Or is it sounds like it's just straight from John Gibson. So just want to put that out there. I don't know if that Friedman report really plays a big part in all of this. But I think what's just the most interesting about this KO Sports letter is that it doesn't refute that John Gibson has requested a trade or wants out or anything like that. It doesn't say that John Gibson wants to stay on the Ducks. It just says that he's honored to be a member and is committed supporter of the fan base, which is nice to hear, but doesn't really tell us anything. And all it really says, refuting the report that he told the Ducks that he won't play another game, is he said that he's never told anyone in their front office that. So it could have still been someone else within the organization, just not in the front office. All this to say that I feel like this report got out of something that is possibly true, maybe was wrong technically, but was possibly true. And John Gibson is furious about how it's painting him, even though it's maybe true. And I just think when you boil it all down, John Gibson seems to want to have it both ways. He wants out, and he also wants everyone to still like him. And I just feel like we're reaching this point where, again, it's starting to look worse on Gibson than anyone else.
And I think it's a little bit of damage control. And
100%.
And this is the other point that I want to make here on this, is keep in mind the Frank Saravalli quote, that was Friday.
Yeah.
That was prior to free agency starting, prior to all of that. And I believe the Kurt Overhart reporting that he's never said that, or the statement that he's never said that to the front office.
Yeah.
I think it's also possible that John Gibson has probably told that to maybe friends, maybe whatever. And it's
someone within the Ducks.
And it's worked its way to Frank Saravalli because he was unhappy with various different things from the season, wanting a trade. I believe that part of it. I think the other piece of the puzzle here is that we have now seen all of these teams sign goaltenders.
Yep.
And go out, and there are not many destinations for John Gibson.
Obvious kind of glove-like fits anymore.
And so I think the realization here and the damage control part of this is that I think John Gibson is trying to soften that, where he may end up playing for the Ducks come October. That may just be the reality of the situation, and he's trying to soften that blow where it doesn't end up being that same situation. And so,
or he's softening the blow for potential suitors, right?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't want to be seen as a potential problem, right? I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things that hockey players hate, is being a distraction to the team.
Yeah.
And if that's how he ends up looking to other teams, that hurts his ability to get out of Anaheim this offseason.
And I think the other part is the fact that I think it's easy for Frank Saravalli to come on and say, yeah, I overspoke on that podcast. I think I do believe he has requested a trade, but I was probably over pushing that line.
Stuck to his guns.
Like Frank stuck to his guns. And there are people out there that are saying Frank doesn't know anything. Frank is up there as one of the biggest insiders. And so I think that every single person in this soap opera that has happened, there are nuggets of truth from everyone.
Yeah.
And so I don't think Frank is completely telling. I think Frank's telling the truth of what he's been told, but I don't think that is the actual truth. I don't think Kurt Overhart is necessarily telling the complete truth. No. I think Elliot Friedman is telling that same story that's not the complete truth. And I don't know if we're ever fully going to find out. I think to summarize all of this, none of this matters. At the end of the day,
I think it does matter.
No, hear me out here. Mm-hmm. None of this ends up mattering if we need to know what the actual truth is. At the end of the day, John Gibson has requested a trade by all accounts. Elliot Friedman has said that. The Frank Saravalli has said that. There are so many different people reporting that. And I think it's going to end up where I think a trade is likely to happen this offseason.
Yeah, and that's why it matters. Because now, how much of a stink can you kick up every offseason before it just becomes a little untenable, right? I don't think we're at that point yet, but there's a clear trend. And just, again, how many times can you go through this rigmarole before you start asking yourself, maybe it's just best that we just get out of this however we can, right? And I think that the Ducks are, I should say John Gibson is nearing that point where the waters are getting so muddied and it's just so fouled up that he is running the risk of appearing like he's forcing his way out of town, like he's trying to get out as however he can. And while he'll never be, to pull an NBA reference, like a James Harden, wearing a fat man suit in warm-ups to make it seem like he's out of shape to get out of Houston, I just think that we're reaching this kind of, I don't want to say toxic, but it's just trending in that direction, and that's concerning. And to your point, though, that you were making, it's still very hard to see how you get John Gibson to another team right now.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Like, yep. I have been saying the last few days, I don't think a trade happens anymore because the obvious destinations are gone. The destinations that are left, and that would be fits, a la, let's say, in LA, there's a lot of work you have to do to make that trade happen.
The question I have in this, right? Let's just work under the assumption that he did tell the Ducks that.
Yeah.
Or that's made its way to the Ducks front office. Previously, it seemed as if Pat Verbeek was going to work with John Gibson to send him to one of his preferred destinations, even though he only has a 10-team no list, right? So technically, he could send him to 21 different teams without him having to have any say in it.
And Pat Verbeek is pissed about this.
Yeah, 100%. I was at Dev Camp today, he was just holding the stick on his perch. It was the most random thing, by the way. He was just like came out of the door with a stick in his hand.
You think he was smashing up the office after he saw the Sarah Valley tweet?
But yeah, and so I think maybe if this is the case, I think that he may just try to look for the best deal and not actually care about getting him to one of his preferred destinations.
I mean, what favor is John Gibson currying right now by kind of making this even more public? Because Gibson could have just left it alone, right? I mean, I think that this is definitely for him a feeling that, hey, my character is being put into question, and I don't like that. But now it just feels like you're throwing more kerosene onto the fire instead of putting it out. And they've been it's very interesting how they have not said anything about any of the reports that have come out over the last couple months. But now this is the line, right? It's very interesting. It's also, like you said, or how other people have been saying, it's also not that interesting because it just feels like this has been going on forever.
Yeah.
You just want it to end. So part of me before the KO Sports letter came out was kind of reaching that Gibson trade fatigue. But now I'm back in because it's like we're getting content.
They brought you back in?
Yeah, they roped me back in.
You thought you were out, but they brought you back in?
How do you think this plays out?
I don't know, but here's an interesting thing. Do you think the idea that Gibson was gone impacts the signing of Alex Killorn?
No.
Well,
the numbers line up very nicely.
Exactly. Is that me maybe looking for a similarity there of potentially something happening?
Maybe.
I mean, would you do... there's a couple different ways this could work out. You have to take money back to make it work. I mean, one that was thrown out there was trying to make a Nylander for Gibson trade happen.
That would be so difficult.
That would be. Yeah. But I think if you're the Ducks, you can see how it works with Nylander. You could always flip him at the deadline.
You could.
If you want to do that.
It's a lot of work.
It is.
A lot of work.
But something there. And at the end of the day, or you just don't flip him and you gain the cap flexibility.
Yeah.
Like, you're taking on 1 year of William Nylander. If you're able to flip him for something, that's great. You're essentially trading Gibson for Nylander so that you get 1 year. You're only getting 1 year of that cap hit.
True.
And so there's that part of it. Or you take on Murray also to make it work. Like, there are ways to make things happen like that and work around it. So I don't think it's dead in the water. I think there are opportunities there, but I think that they just have to be creative to make it happen.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And speaking of getting creative to make it happen, the kind of other big piece of information to talk about on this show is, by pretty much all reporting, the Ducks are in on Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah.
I mean, the fourth period has reported it, and that's been out there. But Elliot Friedman himself, on 32 Thoughts podcast today, said, basically, more or less to summarize what he was saying before talking about the Anaheim part of it, that the Senators and Detroit were working on a deal, and it just couldn't get past a certain point. And at a certain point, Yzerman just stepped away from the table and said, I'm done. And that's kind of where negotiations were at with that. And Elliot Friedman added that the agent has been given permission to speak to other teams, which I guess now more drama. The agent for Alex DeBrincat is refuting that he has not been. That called the report entirely false and without merit in a text message to The Athletic. So just all the drama right now.
I don't understand refuting that, right?
But here's the exact quote on DeBrincat to Anaheim is like, Elliot Friedman says, one of the things I kind of had heard was initially Anaheim was impossible. In terms of being, and this is me adding my additional information, in terms of being a destination for Alex DeBrincat. And then, now back into the Friedman quote, then I think DeBrincat kind of looked at and said, wait a second, look at this team now, how many centers they've got, and they also have some good young players. Maybe I should think about that a little bit more as an option.
Yeah.
And first off, that goes to show this team, there are people when they look beyond the surface of this team and understand this is not a team that's meant to be bad for especially soon. And also adds kind of an interesting wrinkle of Alex DeBrincat maybe considering going to the Ducks.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that someone's got to be first on a rebuilding team when you're building it back up. Someone's got to come in to give it that credibility, to give it that respect level. You know, for an Alex DeBrincat to join the Ducks roster 72 hours ago or before free agency, that's a bigger gamble. But now you see an Alex Killorn go there, who's as respected as they come around the league. Radko Gudas, and all of a sudden, it's less of a gamble. It's less of a leap for you to do that, to attach your name to something like that. I still think it's also a game of musical chairs, and just the dance partners for DeBrincat are just starting to run out, and that's why Anaheim has kind of jumped up the list a little bit.
Yes.
I just don't know how to feel about this. I just don't know what Alex DeBrincat is thinking long term, the likelihood that he actually signs an extension, because that's what's hanging over all of this. Because sure, if you can trade for Alex DeBrincat with a new contract essentially in hand for him that he signs, and he's a Duck, like he's choosing Anaheim for the next 8 years of his life or what have you, then yes, you go out and you do that because Alex DeBrincat makes your team better, and he's adding another highly skilled forward who's going to complement your young players perfectly. But if he's not interested in that, you're taking a risk by trading for him, and you're going to have to get creative with potentially flipping him again. I wonder if the juice is worth the squeeze at that point.
So just for the purpose of this, and Alex DeBrincat projected term and hit 8 years, $9 million.
Yeah, like it's going to be a big one.
But supposedly teams aren't wanting to do that. This is kind of what I'm starting to wonder, because I think if there's an extension in place, it has to be a similar return to what Ottawa gave up for him, which is they gave up a first, second, third, and the first was a number 7 overall.
Yeah.
So it's a hefty price. I wonder though that,
but I think it would be more than that, because they were not getting him with the big extension last time. They were getting him for a year.
They were getting him for 2 years. The assumption was you're trading him for the extension. So I do wonder though if maybe Pat Verbeek takes the risk.
Is it a Tkachuk Meyer type return?
What was the Timo Meyer? Tkachuk's a different category with what the trade ended up being. What was the Meyer return?
Well, it was just basically a bunch of prospects, right? Some picks, roster player.
I mean, it would be less than the Timo Meyer return because Timo Meyer,
it's just higher reputation.
Yeah, I think. Well, no. So here's what I'm getting at, though. I wonder if Pat Verbeek takes the risk.
It is a gamble.
You bring in Alex DeBrincat, right? Maybe maybe you give up less as a result of that. You don't have a contract in place. You have to sign him to a 1-year deal, and just do that and play out the year. And you run the risk of him becoming a UFA. And you're banking on the team being better this year. And this is where they have to be better. And if they are, and if DeBrincat sees everything that's around him and then signs an extension off of that. But if things go awry, you flip him at the deadline. Sure, you've lost some of the...
You're not recouping the value, I don't think.
No, you're not going to be able to recoup the whole value. But you took that risk to improve your team.
Is it a gamble you would make if there's no extension in place?
I think I would. I think I would from the perspective of the age represents the Ducks core. I don't think the Ducks have that in their system either.
Well, that's the thing. Outside of Leo Carlsson, who's coming up, there's no other real sure thing up front. Alex DeBrincat is that at this point. You need proven talent up front. You need to add to that forward group because the blue line appears set, at least just structurally. We'll see how good it ends up being, but it seems like that box has been mostly checked. Up front, though, I still have a lot of questions, and Alex DeBrincat makes you so much more dynamic. I think he's worth the money, worth the term. It's a big risk, though. It's a big risk, especially, let's say that they have to give up their first-round pick next year. What if the Ducks are bad again, and what if you didn't get to protect it as much as you'd like? There's downside for sure, but I also think that the Ducks, like you've kind of been talking around, they're at the point where they kind of have to, you got to start making moves. You got to start doing something to move the ball downfield because they can't have another year like they just had. They can't have anything close to that. I'm not saying they got to make the playoffs, but they just have to be an obviously competitive team, whether that means you're slightly out of the playoffs or you hung around, but there's got to be an improvement, and DeBrincat gives you that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think I would run that risk. I think this is going to be fascinating to see.
Yeah.
Because the concern is cap flexibility for me. That's the biggest concern. Is DeBrincat worth that contract that he's going to get?
I think so.
I think if you move Gibson, I think that you make this work easily from a cap perspective long term.
Uh-huh.
I think that is the beauty in getting rid of Gibson is that you're gaining the cap flexibility.
Well, assuming that you're getting rid of him without any retention.
Or
something to think about.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating little buzz. I think we said this last summer about a couple of the different moves the Ducks ended up not being able to pull off from a signing perspective. But it shows Pat Verbeek is identifying good players and willing and understanding outside of, I guess you could say, the Gudas and Killorn, the two signings that have happened. But he's looking at a guy to support his core long term.
Yeah.
And be that. And so I think that's fascinating. I also think this can kind of put to bed the idea that Pat Verbeek doesn't like shorter guys. Right?
Yeah. If they have interest in him, clearly they're not allergic to guys under 6 foot. Alex DeBrincat is 5'7". Yeah. Alex DeBrincat is potentially as tall as I am, which is not very tall. So interesting. Yeah. But I don't necessarily know how to fully feel about that quite yet. I think that we need more information, and it just still feels like to make it work, absent an extension. Because here's the thing. We saw the list of teams that Alex DeBrincat wanted to go to. And what do they have all in common? Teams in the south of the U.S., a lot of them without any income tax, right?
Well, and supposedly he wants to be in the U.S. just for easier, for family stuff, things like that.
So you can check that box with the Anaheim Ducks, but you're not checking the income tax-free box. How much that mattered to him, really, we don't know. Maybe it wasn't necessarily about that. Maybe it was just about watching the playoffs and basically seeing which teams were still in it. But if maybe that's what it was about and the competitive aspect, there's a great case to be made that within the next 2 years, the Ducks are going to be a much more competitive team. And maybe part of him is feeling a little burned because he just went to an Ottawa team where that was kind of the hope, and they didn't do that this year. So who knows? It's just a very multi-layered situation.
Yep. All right. Want to start getting into questions? We're an hour in, so...
an hour, given everything we had to talk about, feels pretty good.
Yeah, this is going to be a long one, but that's why we started at 7. All right, so we're going to start with our Discord. So D-Frenzy starts us off. This was last Friday, so before free agency, but had put, I'm honestly starting to sour on Pat Verbeek a little bit. Do you think he's done a good job so far? I just really think not qualifying Milano or Comtois is him missing on the fringes. And even though Carlson could be good or as good or better than Fantilli, early returns is that as a miss too. Real quick context on the Carlson thing. Yeah. There was a report that came out from a podcast that is from the Columbus Dispatch. Who's the main beat guy for Columbus?
Oh, Portsline.
And I think Portsline said that the Blue Jackets were trying to move up, and if they did, they were going to take Carlson.
Huh. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Because, again, that just furthers the notion that with so many people thinking on the outside that this was a slam dunk.
Cannon Fodder Podcast is the podcast from Steven Fabrizio in our YouTube chat.
Just that the presumption was that Fantilli was the clear-cut number 2. I mean, you have first off, he didn't go number 2, and you have the team number 3 that wanted him at number 2.
And Aaron Tietz, the president for the Ducks, on the Duck Stream podcast, said he thought it was interesting that everyone and all the public data and all that stuff had Fantilli second, because he's like, all of our private models and all of the other teams' models had Karlsson clearly second.
I'll poo-poo that a little bit because I feel like you get that a lot when Team X does move Y.
Fair.
And then all of a sudden, our internal data, supported it. But I mean, I agree. Here's the thing that I'll push back on that is there was public data supporting Karlsson. Like, if you looked at Lassi Allinen's tracking data versus Mitch Brown's tracking data of Adam Fantilli.
More so mock drafts, I guess, is where he was going.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I do think, and I've been on the record saying this for weeks, months maybe even at this point, like, it was tight. Like, to me, it was tight between Karlsson and Fantilli. I never thought it was a clear-cut 2 and 3.
So I guess it wasn't, I'm already spacing on his name, from the Columbus Dispatch. Who did you say again?
Portsline?
It wasn't Portsline. It was the Columbus Dispatch beat reporter Brian Hedger.
Okay.
Is who spoke on the podcast.
I've heard that name.
But still, so a beat reporter for the team reported that they were going to trade up to get Leo Karlsson. So, but do you think, to get back to the question, do you think Verbeek's done a good job so far?
He's done a lot of things that I wouldn't do. Has he been a net positive? I'll go with yes.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he's breaking above average that much.
I also think we're starting to see, and I think Milano's the biggest miss.
I don't love this kind of preference, though. Like, it's becoming very obvious, this preference towards, like, grittier guys, taller guys. Like, it's a lot of Murray-esque preferences. Fair. And part of that could just be, well, this is what the team is currently missing, right? Maybe if it was a bunch of slow, lumbering guys in the team that he would be adding in skill. So I don't want to necessarily be the one to say Pat Verbeek has a type for sure, but I just think that the body of evidence is starting to grow a little bit, and I don't love it entirely.
Although I do like the draft that they just had overall.
The draft was good, and Leo Karlsson is a fantastic pick.
Yeah. So, I mean, Mitch Brown even said on the PDO cast that he really, really liked this draft from the Ducks.
Yeah.
He could see what they're doing, even if he could maybe quibble about some of the picks here and there. Overall, the strategy they had was really, really good coming out of this draft.
Agreed.
Chubs Peterson said, what do you think about, or both think about this potential Gibson trade? Gibson at 50% retained and a second for Vanacek and Holtz.
I don't think that the Devils do that.
I don't think they do that. I would run to the bank with that deal, though.
Yeah, if you can get their best forward prospect for John Gibson, basically, sure, you do that, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Also, I want to push back. Winterborn just threw this in our Twitch chat about a lot of two-way guys. I don't know if all the guys are two-way guys. There are some higher upside guys that they did end up drafting. Maybe of the grittier-esque. And I mean, Dioniccio, I think, is definitely a guy that is more of a risky play, a higher-end guy.
He's very risky.
I put this in our Patreon episode, but I think he played on a line with Shane Wright as a forward, even though he's a defenseman, near the end of the season. And per all the reporting through Elite Prospects, he was the play driver on that line. And so, I mean, the second round, I think, is the one that I would quibble with the most. I really like all of the rounds outside of that, though.
Yeah. I like the Ducks draft from my kind of less informed point of view, but I just think that you got Leo Karlsson, and that's the biggest thing.
Yep. Olaf as Berserker said, if John Gibson never plays another game for the Ducks, what is his legacy in Anaheim?
Ring of Honor candidate.
I mean, I think that they were asking for a bit, or Olaf was asking for a bit more than that. I would say his legacy was one of the best goaltenders in Ducks history. I think he just broke in at the wrong time for the team.
And that's where I was going to go. Great player, bad timing. Yeah. And that's completely... And I don't blame him for being fed up and not wanting to play another game. It's been a real rough ride the last few years. So... Because he's been here through it all. Like, it's not just the last couple of years. So I feel bad for him in a way. but at the same time, I don't know. I guess I don't feel that bad.
D-Rock, our good friend Derek Lee, make sure to go follow him on Twitter. Always providing great content. Ignoring the actual contract details themselves, which signing do you like more between Gudas and Killorn?
I like Gudas better. I'm more intrigued in a way by Killorn because I'm just intrigued how it fits.
I think that ignoring contract details is what's hanging me up right now because I think Killorn's maybe I like a bit more from that perspective.
I'm just very curious to see how this player meshes with the Ducks' current group of forwards.
Yeah, I mean, I like both.
I just feel like with Gudas, I have a better handle on what kind of player he is, and I've watched him more just because he was just in the Stanley Cup final, and I guess Killorn's been there a lot too, but I just feel like I don't have as good of a handle on Killorn's game, and so I'm just very curious to see how he looks on the Ducks. Because there is a very big question here of how much of his success was due to being in Tampa Bay and being with those players. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. So I just realized I actually responded to this in Discord and I said Gudas is now I'm saying Killorn. So there you go. Jared Killorn Stan said, if Gibson is truly gone, is the Killorn contract fine now?
If what?
If Gibson is truly gone, is the Killorn contract fine now?
No, because the contract is still not ideal, however you slice it.
It's fine.
I don't think it's ideal.
Fair.
It's not a button I would have pressed.
Ferdiduck said, should the Ducks claim Philip Zadina?
Sure. Why not?
Yeah. One thing I was wondering is when that happened, I was like, oh, maybe there's a Detroit connection. He was drafted by Detroit prior to Pat Verbeek being there.
He's got some good numbers, got some intriguing underlying numbers, so why not?
I will pass on the next question from Ferdiducks out of respect for you.
Okay.
SB80
I reached out to him.
Okay. SB84 said, will Leo Carlson at minimum break training camp and be on the opening night roster for the 23-24 Ducks?
Curious about that. Because I feel like if we've seen with Pat Verbeek and bigger profile prospects like Olin Zellweger, there was a clear plan of, hey, come get your reps in training camp, but we're not going to waste too much of your time, and you're going to go back without playing regular season games. Leo Carlson's a different player. Different caliber of player.
I was about to push back on that.
Different type of player, different body, different everything. So I would put the chances of him playing an NHL game maybe at above 50%, but I would still bet against him being a full-time NHLer this season.
I would say the likelihood of him playing an NHL game this season is over 90%.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little high to me, but I get it. Like he checks so many boxes for Pat Verbeek.
Also with the understanding that the SHL season ends before the NHL season.
There you go.
So that also factors in. Shake and Wing said, thoughts on the Ducks offseason so far?
Well, I guess the last hour and change has been that.
Yeah.
But intriguing, interesting, drama.
Give it a letter grade.
Ooh. I'll say B minus. B
yeah.
minus.
Yep. I would agree with that.
Not great, but not terrible.
Yeah. The team is better now than they were last week.
If you just look at the team and how they'll be, they are going to be better.
Yep. Solani Sandwich said, if the Ducks don't make another offseason trade or free agent pickup, what do you think the lines will be?
Okay, well, is Adam Henrique on the first line with Zegras and Terry?
I think Alex Killorn's there.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think Pat Verbeek may even push for that because of the fact that, again, like Alex Killorn is everything that those guys aren't, right?
Yeah.
So, sure, Killorn, Zegras, Terry, line one. Second line, at that point, do you go Henrique, McTavish, Strome?
Henrique, McTavish, Strome. Yeah.
Third line, I mean, now it's like there's not really going to be much difference. Like, Vetrano, Lundestrom.
I mean,
Silver.
Is Regenda on the team?
Maybe. Is Brock McGinn on the team?
Brock McGinn is on the team, seeing as one of the interesting parts of Greg Cronin's interview on Duckstream is he mentioned he went and he stopped at a bunch of players' hometowns on his drive.
Didn't stop at Kevin Shattenkirk's house.
He did not stop at Kevin Shattenkirk's house, but he did stop at Brock McGinn's house.
Okay, so let's go McGinn, Carrick, Jones, fourth line. That's just a classic fourth line. And then, I mean, there's just not many names left, so I'll just go Vetrano, Lundestrom, Silverberg. Blue line.
Wait,
Fowler,
did you mention Strome at all? Was
I
he
did.
on the okay.
Second line, yeah. Blue line, Fowler, Drysdale. People have been poo-pooing that.
Oh, I have Carlson on the third line, just FYI.
Well, okay, opening night, sure.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking 82 games here.
You go on. I'll give mine after you. How about that?
Zellweger, Gudas. Wow, Daily Faceoff has the pairings I tweeted out, or mine just super obvious.
They definitely took it from you. Let's go with that.
Zellweger, Gudas, and then Lacombe, Hellison as your third pairing.
Yeah.
Or what's his name? I already forgot his name. The guy they signed today.
Robert Hagg.
Shows how little I care about that
seventh
signing.
defenseman, Robert Hagg.
Here's the thing, though. The Ducks make these signings on the blue line that look like nothing, and then the guy ends up being a regular. Like, look at Nathan Beaulieu last season.
Yeah, that was also Dallas Aikens.
Yeah, still Pat Verbeek.
We'll see. Okay, so my forward lines are Killorn, Zegras, Terry. The second line will be, let's go with Vetrano, McTavish, Strome, because somehow that will end up being... no, actually, I'm going to go Regenda, McTavish, Strome. The third line is going to be Henrique, Carlson, and Nestorenko.
Oh, I forgot about him. Darn.
And the fourth line is McGinn, Lundestrom, Vetrano.
Okay. Your lines make more sense. I was basically just reading off Daily Faceoff.
Yeah.
So.
My lines are... And the team sounds a lot better also as a result of it.
Whatever.
Yeah. So, there we go. And defense...
No Max Comtois re-signing?
Defense, I agree with Zellweger and Gudas together. I think that would be...
We didn't mention Simon Benoit not getting qualified.
I did kind of.
Did you?
In passing when talking about Radko Gudas.
I've been here for an hour and 16 minutes, going on 17, and I don't remember that. But
I mentioned it at the very beginning of the show when talking about Gudas.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. So there we go. Let's see. Appa says, how will the apology letter look from CTP leads Jake and Felix for immediately jumping on the deceiver Frank Saravelli's bandwagon?
Let me tell you this. I am more inclined to believe a journalist than a player agent. But that doesn't mean that one is right and one is wrong, but that is my natural inclination, and I'm letting everyone know what my biases are. Yeah. So choose kindness.
Yeah. SES Per said, what does a realistic DeBrincat trade look like?
I'm going to throw this hot potato to you.
I'm going to go with a lottery-protected first-round pick.
Uh-huh.
Tristan Leno. Adam Henrique.
Wow.
And maybe a third.
I feel like Ottawa's not going to get that much for him.
Maybe.
That feels like a sizable return.
Would you do that?
Yes, because Adam Henrique's not coming back anyway. I mean, I would do that specific package if I knew DeBrincat was going to stay in Anaheim. Mm-hmm. The rental package to me is less than that.
Of protected first and Henrique?
Yeah, I don't think you're giving up Tristan Leno if I mean, again, maybe I'm dipping too much into overvaluing prospects, but you just look at how highly ranked prospects are valued on the trade market, and it just seems like those guys don't get traded if it's a rental type deal. Maybe the Ducks don't view him as that, and he's firmly in the second or third tier, though. I don't know.
Do you think they value Isaac Lundestrom?
If they do, and by they being Ottawa, then you're in luck. You're in luck.
You take that and run. You add whatever else is needed.
Is it bad, though, that I'm very curious to see Isaac Lundestrom not playing for Dallas Aikens? How curious am I is the question.
Jack Jane said, who would win in a fight, Kurt Overhart or Frank Saravalli?
I don't know what Kurt Overhart looks like.
I'm going to assume Kurt Overhart, though, because we know what Frank Saravalli looks like.
Wow.
He says it himself on his podcast.
Jake, don't make fun of Frank Saravalli's appearance challenge. Difficulty level impossible. I just looked up Kurt Overhart, and he looks like, he takes care of himself, so I'll go Kurt. You know what? No. I'm taking Frank's side on this. Frank's going to have some of that old man strength, and he's going to be able to...
What old man strength? He's 35.
He's going to be hard to take down.
He's 35.
He's going to be hard to take down. And I think
you could have gone with he's got the Philly grit if you wanted to do that type of thing. He's got the Philly grit.
He's going to be able to take down Kurt.
The cheesesteaks are flowing.
I'm just going to assume Kurt is taller than him, which is probably not a fair assumption, but let's just go with that. I'm going to and then that way, Frank can shoot for the legs, the double underhooks or whatever. the double leg and take him down, and he's going to be able to hold him down for reasons.
Okay.
And then he can go ground and pound, Khabib style.
Wow. Okay. Chastity said, what are some specific skill sets that differ between forwards and defensemen? Why are guys like Makar and Carlson not forwards?
Well, I think the biggest thing with forwards is it's a lot of quick kind of stop and go, read and react, whereas defense, when you get back and you bring it up, you have the whole play in front of you. Whereas when you're a forward, you got to look behind you, you got to see the puck coming towards you when you're receiving a pass. You're doing a lot more work trying to get the puck off the wall. So it's just kind of different skill sets, different reaction times.
Yeah. All right. Jared Killorn said, if a first is asked for DeBrincat, is it okay if it's unprotected?
If you can get him signed, then it could be okay. But I would never throw away that first round pick for a rental unprotected.
Yeah.
Never in a million years.
Yep.
Maybe in 1,000,001, but not in a million.
Second place, Louis said, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Tacos or burritos. # Los Angeles.
Burritos. I think burritos are more versatile.
That's a tough one. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have easily said burritos.
Wow.
But I really think tacos take the cake right now.
No, it's burritos.
I think tacos. All right, I'm gonna go to my Twitter DM. Sorry, I have too many mentions right now with tweeting out that quote about DeBrincat, so it's hard for me to look at my notifications. So sorry for people that asked that. But in the DMs, this came from Hockey South. Big couple of days in Ducksland. Starting to see the Verbeek plan unfold, and I agree with his direction. What's the AAV number for an extension if we trade for DeBrincat or Nylander? 9 to 10 million. If that's the range, does Verbeek pull the trigger? Appreciate you guys. Yeah, I think 9 to 10 million.
For Nylander.
I think DeBrincat also.
No.
I think DeBrincat's 9.
DeBrincat maybe 9, but not 10.
Well, 9 to 10.
But I don't think the 210 is possible for him.
I mean, 9 to 10 could be 9.1.
Well, okay, 9.9 no, 9.8 no,
9
9.7 no.
9 is
9.5
in the
no.
9 to 10 range.
No, because I think half of that range is not available to him. So it's the 9 to 9.5 range.
If he gets 9 million, he falls in the 9 to 10.
No, because there's half of that range just doesn't exist for him. I just don't believe that. Deal in reality, not fiction.
Trevor Zebra said, hey, Jake, hope all is well with you guys. I got 2 questions for you guys tonight. In a DeBrincat trade, I'm assuming they would want prospects and picks coming back. In your guys' opinion, who is untouchable? Zegras, McTavish, that's it. Oh, and wait.
Zellweger?
Carlson, sorry.
Wow, so no Zellweger?
Zegras, McTavish, Carlson are the only untouchables to me. Zellweger is not because of the depth they have within the blue line.
I'm going Zellweger is untouchable on the back end. Hey, they can have a Jamie Drysdale, they can have a Pavel Mintyukov, but Zellweger is just a piece I don't think you can give away.
Do you think Lacombe Perreault, a 2024 and 2025 second round pick, would get it done?
That is probably a more realistic package if he's a rental. So, yes, if it's a rental.
Troy Terry's confident said, question for the pod. When's the latest this season Troy Terry has made captain? Before the preseason games? Is there anyone else that you think is a realistic captain option for this team from now through contention?
You know what I'm going to say?
What?
Alex Killorn.
Alex Killorn is not going to be the captain.
He might.
He's not even going to have a letter.
Ooh, I would bet against that.
I think the fact that they love Silverberg's going to still have a letter.
What happens if Henrique isn't on the team to start the season?
Henrique didn't have a letter last year, only when Silverberg was hurt that he had a letter.
I thought he had a letter.
Oh, maybe he did, but that's because they had the 3. But Terry ended up having. I think Terry's going to have an A, or Terry might just be the captain. Is Fowler named the captain?
I could see that. I'll go Terry, Fowler, leaders in the clubhouse, but Alex Killorn, outside chance.
Killorn maybe could end up with an A. Fine, I'll give you that.
I think he gets an A just by default.
Killorn is not on the same level as Scott Niedermayer either. Scott Niedermayer came in and got the captain. Scott Niedermayer is a different level of talent than Alex Killorn, and different level of leader also.
Are we sure about that?
Oh man.
Are we sure?
I feel like you are the I think you should leave guy right now. You sure about that?
I was gonna say I thought that. Why did I think Scott Niedermayer had less cups than 4? I don't know why. Never mind. Disregard what I was.
He has
about
4,
to say.
right?
He has 4. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's it for our Twitter and our Discord. So for those of you listening to this on your favorite podcast services, you can find us at twitch.tv/crashbond, where if you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free Twitch Prime gaming sub each and every month. And you can hit that subscribe button, and it helps out more than you can imagine. You can also follow and just get notified when we go live. But you can just be just like Dissolvi, who resubbed, SJ Hawking, who resubbed, Shoegaze Dragon Georgie, who resubbed, Betting 55555 gave out 5 gifted subs, and GK FamC also subbed. So
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for doing that. Or if you prefer YouTube, or if you just watch on Twitch and so you use YouTube, because that's how I am, go to youtube.com/crashpond. If you like what you are seeing, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell to get notified when we go live. We are really trying to boost our channel subscription, likes, everything like that. So please help out with that. It helps out more than you can imagine. So we're going to start getting into questions here. If you have any in YouTube, the YouTube chat or the Twitch chat, just please throw a question at the front. Just easier for me to identify, especially on a night like tonight when we have so many questions. Rhett Flo said, question, have you heard chatter that neither Zegras or Terry want to sign with Ducks? No, have not heard that.
Nope, have not.
Lewis X209 said, question, what is the best bit in the Discord in this very moment, and why is it the LA bit?
It's not that. It might be the copy pastas, though.
The copy pastas have to be up there.
Those are pretty amazing. Yeah.
In terms of the best bit. Let's see. Tobias B said, was Korea captain before Scott? It's been a while since they were part of the team, and I was really young to remember that. LOL. Korea was the captain, and then there was the 1 year pre-lockout where he was not where he had left, and Steve Ruchin was the captain for that season, and then the lockout happened. Came back from the lockout. Steve Ruchin was no longer a Duck. And Scott Niedermayer was named the captain. Let's see. And I know that we've got more questions coming. I just need to find... Oh, here we go. Beatall said, would you rather trade for DeBrincat or Nylander?
Who's younger?
DeBrincat, easily. DeBrincat's 25. Nylander is like 27, 28.
Yeah.
Nylander was the Richie draft.
Yeah. I think I'd go DeBrincat, and I think he'll cost less. I think he's just younger. I would go that direction.
Yep. And then Logan Montgomery said, whose skating stood out at Ducks Dev Camp this morning? How did Carlson and Dionicio look? So I saw Dionicio. You could tell that his edge work needs some work, that there is a lot within his skating stride that he needs to develop, but there is a player there. You saw the video of Carlson. I didn't get to see it live, but I saw that video. What did you think?
You saw with I just saw the clip, is that he's I think he's already improved his edge work. So, he's improved his skating already. He's getting lower. He's bending his knees more. But you can tell that when he's just going straight, he's still a little upright. His back is kind of arched. He's not really lower in his stance. And so that's something that he knows he needs to work on. But he didn't look like a bad skater at all. He looked especially the thing you have to keep in mind is that his size, right? He's 6'3". The fact that he's that agile at his size is really incredible. And so, yeah, I was impressed with his skating.
Beatall said, question, does adding DeBrincat change Gibson's mind about about wanting out?
I just think it's getting too toxic at this point. I don't know what it would take, honestly, for him to want to come back.
It seems like there's more there than meets the eye, and could just lead to the best thing is
hinting
a trade has to happen. And then let's see, there was a question that I just saw. Now it was from this Nick, more or less asking what the ceiling for this Ducks team is this upcoming season. Oh yeah, what is the Ducks' realistic ceiling this year? What Buffalo was last year? Young, talented team that will push for a wild card spot, but ultimately miss the playoffs.
I think so. I don't think their ceiling is the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if they add DeBrincat, I think that we have that conversation though.
Sure, but he's not here, so
agreed.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. JH 1722 said, question: Bouchard versus DeBrincat Nylander. If you're willing to move a first, second, and third and give $8.5 million, why not offer sheet Bouchard? A first rounder would be a massive, or number one right-handed D would be a massive get, plus messes with division rival.
I just don't think that there's really a need to pay that price at that position.
Yeah, it's more so a positional need perspective with the Ducks situation along the blue line.
You can spend that capital elsewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, agreed. Tobias B said, do you think that Winnipeg would do a Gibson trade for Hellebuyck? I think they would do it because Gibson's locked up. Mm-hmm. The question is, first off, is Gibson's his Winnipeg on his 10-team no list? Probably. And if you're the Ducks, why would you do that? I guess from the perspective of you get Hellebuyck for 1 year, and then you just let him walk, and then you have the cap flexibility. I guess maybe that's it.
Yeah.
But I don't think you trade for Hellebuyck and then you keep him long term. The whole thought process of trading Gibson is you want to gain the cap flexibility, and Hellebuyck's going to make a whole hell of a lot more than Gibson does.
Why does Blue Sky look exactly like Twitter?
Because it's created by the original developers of Twitter.
I just accepted
Jack Dorsey.
I just accepted the invite, so I'm in.
Yeah, and USA Hockey said, what draft pick do you guys think the Ducks will get next year? If I were a betting man, I would say
top 14.
I would say 11 or 12 is where they end up as of right now.
No longer in that top 5, top 3, but I still think that they're in the lottery.
Yeah.
Or a chance at the lottery.
Yep. Lou's saying 6 flex.
Is it a flex?
You being in Blue Sky.
I don't know what's what anymore.
Yeah. Blue Sky is going to be where it's at. Find me on there. Same handle, Reindeer Games 91.
I kind of hate making new social media accounts at this point because I feel like I'm just forking over my data to yet another entity, but
I mean,
fine.
Everyone has it. Beat-All said, question: best Twitter replacement, Blue Sky or incoming Threads by IG? Definitely Blue Sky.
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about Threads, and I literally just made a Blue Sky account, so...
I mean,
I just, you know what I would love back? Just old Twitter.
That is what Blue Sky legitimately looks like.
3 days ago, Twitter would be just fine. I had no problems back then.
You don't like having a rate limit and having to feel like you are having to limit the amount that you look at Twitter so you don't waste all your data or find a workaround.
I don't want to have to pay just for basic functionality.
I will say this. Thank you to Elon Musk for making our Discord way more of a thing that matters.
Yeah.
Because we had you, me, Dejun was in there. There were a couple other people in there that we had some workarounds where we were able to post tweets in the Discord.
Yeah.
And basically became a Twitter thread of all the information from the free agency day. So it became a pretty useful place to find out information, actually, if you did not have a workaround and you had your rate limit met, which let's just say it happened for me within 30 minutes of waking up.
Can we, how many tweets?
600 tweets is not that much.
How much scrolling are you doing? Anyway,
it was the morning. It was free agency day.
Can we declare a moratorium on rate limit references?
No,
I don't want to.
It's been like 2 days. It's been like 2 days.
I don't want to talk about it.
But yeah, Sky Blue. Is it Blue Sky or Sky Blue? I forget. I always mess it up in my head. Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Sky Blue's a wrestler. That's why it confuses me.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Oh, are we done with questions?
I don't see anything else.
Okay. Wow. Crazy. Well, I guess we're over an hour and a half, so it might be a good time to call it a day. Call it a night. I almost said call it a day. It's almost 9 p.m. Yeah, well, thank you for listening, everyone, and what a crazy start to the off-season. I have a sneaking suspicion that the next week is going to be crazy again. Do you think it's pencils down for the rest of the week?
No.
Yeah, do you think that the Ducks make another significant move by this time next week?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go with yes as well. That's just what it feels like. Too many irons in the fire to rule it out completely.
Yeah, and I mean, this week almost every single GM is still working. No one's at a cottage. Everyone's at their team's development camp.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking at their prospects. Everyone's on the phone. Paverbeek standing on a perch with a stick around his head or pointing sticks at people.
After smashing up the office.
It was so random. Like, everyone else was just sitting on that perch at Great Park, and he just, like, walks out and just, like, just has a stick in his hand. No real reason, just
I
stick
mean,
in
he's
his
at a
hand.
hockey rink holding a hockey stick. I don't think that's that weird.
I mean, it's a little weird.
He probably got like a signed stick or something, and he was just messing around with it. Like, I don't know. Let's not make a mountain out of this molehill.
No, there's no. It was just funny.
Yeah.
There's no mountain. It was just
Why are
entertaining.
you? I feel like Kurt Overhart's gonna send you a letter soon if you keep this up.
It's gonna come to me on Blue Sky.
Yeah, or something. I don't know. I don't want to
Yeah.
think about Twitter anymore. Okay. Well, on that note, if you want to support our show, there's a few really easy ways for you to do that. The number one way is support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/CrossThePond. We greatly appreciate everyone who added to that support over the weekend. We're glad that we can give you a place where you can easily access information. So for $1 a month, you get access to our Discord or to our patrons only Discord server, and I think it's $10.80 for the whole year.
Something like that.
So you get a little bit of a discount there. So $1 a month or $10.80 for the whole year up front. Super worth it. You get access to a community of diehard Ducks fans, and it's just going to be easier. You're never going to miss anything if you're part of our Discord. How about that? I can say that very confidently. You will never miss any news if you are part of our Discord.
Just the only thing I will add, be understanding that there are a lot of bits.
Yes.
And if someone replies to you with something that sounds harsh, it's probably a copy pasta bit.
Yes, exactly. I like to throw in some of my more ridiculous replies from Twitter, and we have a little bit of fun with those. So have an open mind that there's a lot of humor in there too. For $5 a month, you get access to 2 bonus podcasts a month, and I forget what the deal is for that if you pay all up front, but there's also a discount. So go
It's
check
like
that out.
$54 or something like that.
Go check that out. Patreon.com/CrossThePond. We greatly, really appreciate that because that helps us out more than you can imagine. We've been doing this now for, 6 years, something like that.
Six.
So,
Yeah, this was season 6.
yeah, so we gotta keep things going. Now, if you don't want to pledge any money, totally understandable. You can also leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. Those also really do go a long way. Just type in Crash the Pond on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating, type out a review. It takes 2-3 minutes tops, and we really appreciate it. And if you leave us a review, we'll read it on the show, so you get your time in the limelight. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/CrashThePond. We've got the video version of the podcast going up there, so you can see our faces. I won't say pretty faces. I'll tell you can see our faces there. And if you're a YouTube podcast person, you get it there. You can also leave us a rating on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, really. Make sure to check out our website, crashthepond.com. Check out the Sporting Tribune. I've got an article up there right now about the free agent signings. So go check that out. Follow Jake on Twitter at ReindeerGames91. I'm on Twitter at Felix_Sicard.
Find us on Blue Sky.
And I'm being told I sound taller on the air. Is my height still being discussed? Interesting.
I don't know.
Anyway, all that being said, thank you for listening, everyone, and we will talk to you soon. Have a good one.
Bye.